Today we've come to the site of a medieval murder mystery, and behind me you can see an old oak tree which marks the spot where William Rufus, the son of William the Conqueror, was slain. First of all, let me tell you a bit about William Rufus himself. Now, William Rufus was an unpopular king in many respects. The historical accounts which come down to us are written predominantly by men of the church, an organisation that William Rufus did not do much to make friends with. In fact, most of his reign was characterised by warfare that took away money in taxes from the church and from other parts of English society as well. He was the third son of William the Conqueror, but became King of England on William the Conqueror's death after his older brother Robert was given the Duchy of Normandy. By the year 1100, William Rufus had ruled for 13 years, a period which had seen conflict with the Welsh, with the Scottish, and with his own brother to try and wrestle control for the Duchy of Normandy. By 1100, William Rufus's conflict was to come to a head in his own death in the New Forest. Let's go to the day of the murder mystery itself. So the date is the 2nd of August 1100, and a messenger is riding full pelt down from the abbot of Gloucester down to the New Forest where William Rufus has his camp ready to go hunting. And this messenger comes with a warning that the abbot had a dream the previous night presaging that the king was going to be killed if he was going to go hunting that day. But to this stark warning, William Rufus had his own characteristic reply.
I don't listen to the dreams of a stupid English monk.
So, off the king went with his men to go on that favourite of Norman pastimes, the hunt. They galloped through the New Forest, dismounting when they spotted several deer up ahead. As Tirel and the king approached a group of nearby deer, an arrow glanced off a tree, striking the king dead in the chest. The king tried to pull it out, but it was to no avail. He fell on the ground, dead where he lay. The king's body lay abandoned in this very spot and was recovered only by a mere charcoal burner, a man called Perkis, whose relatives still live in the New Forest until this very day. Perkis gathered the king's remains and took him to Winchester, where the king was to be buried. So, who killed the king? For our first culprit, we need to investigate the very man who was next to him on that dastardly day.
Vive le roi.
Tirel's motive for killing the king was simple. He was an agent of the French monarchy, sent by Prince Louis of France to send the English throne into chaos and anarchy with the death of its king.
Allez, what a Tirel, and bring me the head of the English king.
Mais oui, I am the man for the job.
If we believe this story, then it's not too hard to see why, when faced with Rufus's death, Walter Tirel was accused by contemporary sources of abandoning the king and fleeing at the first available opportunity. However, as with most things in history, the story was not that simple, and it seems as if William Rufus and Walter Tirel were in fact great friends.
Walter Tirel,
great to see
brother. How was the journey from France?
Long, painful, terrible.
We've got a feast for you, my friend. What do you have in France?
We have le KFC, le Domino's.
It is the 12th century, my friend. Le KFC and the Domino's have not yet arrived in England, but what we do have is the Mackies down the road.
Parfait.
Allez, let's go.
The chronicler William of Malmesbury tells us that when Tirel visited William, he was not received with hatred, but in fact with a feast laid on at the court of the king. Also, when the two went hunting together, William Rufus gave the sharpest of his arrows to Walter Tirel, acknowledging that he was the greater huntsman.
I see the deer. Slow, cautious. Here, mon ami, the sharpest arrow should go to the man with the cleanest, deadliest shot.
Merci.
Taking Tirel's friendship with the king into account, we now need to look elsewhere to consider who else may have had motives to dispose of the English monarch. For our next culprit, we're going to go to someone who was even closer to the king, in fact one who was related to him by birth, and this was his younger brother, Henry. As the youngest son of William the Conqueror, Henry had received the least amount of inheritance compared with his older two brothers. As such, he had long harboured ambitions for the English throne, and had played off William against his brother Robert during their conflict over the Duchy of Normandy. In 1100, Henry's opportunism was to come to the fore. Henry too was on this same hunting expedition, although he went off with another group of people to hunt another group of deer elsewhere in the forest. But when he heard of his brother's death, he didn't go and mourn over the corpse. As we've already heard, the king's corpse was left to rot in the forest itself. Instead, what Henry did was that he travelled quickly by horse to Winchester to secure for himself the royal treasury. Following that, within a couple of days, he had himself crowned the next King of England in Westminster Abbey. Young Henry was quick to distance himself from his unpopular brother William. He issued a coronation charter where he promised that he was going to end the corruption and violence of his predecessor and instead rule in the style of his father, the great William the Conqueror. This was to gain him much needed support from the barons at a time of anarchy and potential civil war, and it was also to gain him the support of that most vital of organisations to a king, the English Church. This brings us on to our last culprit, which is the Almighty God himself. Come with me to this corner of wisdom for just a minute, where we're going to look at one of the primary accounts that tells us about William Rufus's death. This is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, a chronicle compiled by Anglo-Saxon monks, which is generally critical of William. It accuses him of persecuting the church, of homosexuality, of all things that were abominable to God and to man. But most importantly, let's focus in on the day of his death. It reads that he was ever vexing this nation with force and with unjust taxes. And on the day he fell, he had in his own hands the Archbishopric of Canterbury, and that of Winchester, Salisbury, and 11 abbacies, all let out for rent. And what this meant was that William Rufus, even on the day of his death, when he went to his deathbed unrepentant, he was making money from the church. William Rufus's hostile attitude towards the church and thus to God, therefore, was surely enough to deflect that arrow off that tree and to cause his death by divine intervention. So you've seen the culprits, now it's time for you to decide. Who do you think killed William Rufus? Put your vote below, don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Mr. Keet on location. I'm off now to the local pub to enjoy a nice venison burger.